Hey guys, this is Joe Matalone, and today we're taking a look at GruntJS, the JavaScript task runner. It's all about automation with GruntJS. You can find out all about it at gruntjs.com, but basically it's there to automate things like minification or compiling from a pre-processing language like Coffeescript or less to JavaScript or CSS. Basically, it automates your build, saves you a bunch of time, and we're going to jump right in on how to install it and how to use it with some pre-processing languages. So the installation is Node Package Manager, install Grunt Tech command line interface. I'm going to throw on a TAC G so I can use it globally. Once that's up and running, what Grunt needs to work is a package.json file, which is essentially provided by Node Package Manager, and it needs a Grunt file, which we're going to create and mark up ourselves. So first, I'm going to create a directory called G for our project. I'll cd into that. Now, in order to get my package.json file up and running, I'm just going to run npm init, and that's just going to walk me through a quick little fill in the fields kind of thing, testing, index.html. Most of this doesn't really matter. Actually, I'm going to skip a lot of it. License, and yes, this is okay. So there's it's showing us the contents that it's about to write, and so we're going to say, yeah, we're fine with that. And so that we don't get this, no readme file error found, or found error, we're going to go ahead and create that really quick. So readme.md, that's the file. Okay, so if I look at the contents here, we've got this package.json file, and if I get the content of that, JSON, you can see, it is the content that we just provided it. You don't have to worry about the test echo error. It doesn't really matter right now. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to install Grunt, and we're going to use a very important flag, which is double tech save tech dev. And what that's going to do is it's going to inject that as a developer dependency into the package.json so that later we can use it in our Grunt file. But more importantly, you could pass that file on to somebody, and they could go ahead, drop that into their directory, and just run npm install, and it would automatically go get those developer dependencies for them, so they could go ahead and start contributing to your project, or whatever the case may be. Now, another thing that GruntJS has is a ton of plugins, and these are really, the Grunt main package that we just installed there allows us to do Grunt things, but you need these plugins to do very specific tasks. On their website, you go to the plugins section, and then all these ones with a little star, and I'm pretty sure they all have the contrib word in their title. These are developed by the GruntJS team. There's lots of others that are contributed by other people, as you can see. We're just going to take a look at a couple of them, and the first one is going to be grunt contrib tac less, and again we're going to commit that to our package.json in the dev dependencies. So there's less, and if you're not familiar, less is a preprocessor for CSS. And you always have to compile it down. There are in-browser solutions for that, but ideally you want to turn it into something the browser can read natively. And the other one we're going to do is Coffee, for Coffeescript, and we're going to go ahead and install that. And again, Coffeescript is a preprocessor for JavaScript. So now if we take a look at our package.json, you can see here in the dev dependencies we've got grunt, contrib less, and contrib coffee. And again, we could pass that on to somebody and they could have the exact same tools and environment that we're working in up and running in just a few seconds. So let's get this going. So let's make a directory for our less. Let's make a directory for our coffee. Let's see, let's make a new item. Index.html. That's going to be a file. Whoa, shoot. File. And we're also going to make a new item, and this is going to be our grunt file, so it's gruntfile.js. And let's go into our less and make a new item there called site.less. And that's going to be a file, and we'll cd out of this and cd into coffee, and we'll make one more file, site.coffee, and that's going to be a file. Let's see out of that. Let's look. I think we got everything here. Let's go ahead and jump into our text editor. Here we go. All right, so first things first, let's build up our HTML file. And we'll just call this title. And let's see, we're going to have our CSS right here. And that's just going to be site.css. And down here, right before we close the body, we'll add in our JavaScript, which is going to be site.js. Now, obviously, neither of those exist at this point. I'm going to go ahead and save that. We'll throw in an h1, our site, a p tag. This is the paragraph. And we'll throw in a button. Give that an ID of the button right here. It looks about right. Okay, so if we run this right now, what's going to happen is we're getting our HTML, no problem, but we will see that the site CSS and site.js, they don't exist yet. And what we want to do is we want to turn our less file into the CSS file and our coffee file into the JS file. So let's go ahead and create those. So here is our less thing, our less file. And what we're going to do is so with less you can create these variables. So you can create variables for color, you can create variables for width, I mean any sort of variable you want basically. So red, I think that's about right, and we'll do blue. You know, I don't have a, yeah, here we go, I use that all the time. So now we'll just say, so our h1 color is going to be at red, and our p color is going to be at blue, and we'll say our button background color is going to be the at red, and therefore we'll make the text color on that white so we can see it. Okay, so now we've got this less file that again does not natively work with the browser. So now we'll do our coffee file, and for our coffee file we're just gonna say document.get element by ID, and I think we call it the button, and we're gonna say on click. That is not how you spell on click. If you've never used Coffeescript, don't worry about it. This is all pretty standard, and I'm covering a lot of ground here, so don't worry about it. This is going to make sense in a moment. And I think I got a typo there. Okay, so now what we want to do again is we want to tell Grunt to go ahead and take that coffee file and that less file and turn them into our site.js and our site CSS. So let's jump into our Grunt file. Now the Grunt file takes kind of a boilerplate. If you've used require.js or something like that, this will probably make more sense to you. But don't be too overwhelmed here. It's pretty simple. So we start off with this kind of boilerplate module.exports equals function. We pass grunt to that. Now inside of this is where we do all our grunt stuff. And the first thing you need to do is a grunt init config. Now that's a function, and it takes an object. And the object is basically the list of all our tasks that we want to run. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to tell it about our package.json, and that takes this package key, and then say grunt.file. I think it's read JSON, and it's in the root of our application here, so package.json, and then after that we can start telling it what to do. So the first task is going to be coffee, and that takes an object, and the first key there is going to be compile. Compile, and then we tell it which files we want to compile, what we want to compile to what, and that's another object called files, or well, with a key of files, and then in there we pass it the object of files, and this can be an array of files. It can be whatever you want it to be. Let me kind of tab all this out for you so it's making a little more sense. And well, this one's for files, this one's for that. So all right, it's a little cleaner. Okay, so in here all we need to do is tell it the file we want to create, which is site.js, and what we want to create it from, which is going to be coffee/site.coffee. So what we're telling it there is we're saying take the site.coffee file and turn it into site.js in the root of our application. And the good news is that I'm pretty sure the less command is the exact same. Now each of these plugins is going to have its own little syntax, not really its own little syntax, but it's going to have different things. In our case with less and coffee, we're just compiling, and the context or the code is basically identical. So now we'll get outside this init, and before we close our full-on function, what we need to do is load the plugins that we installed, so the contrib less and the contrib coffee. And the way we do that is grunt.load capital NPM tasks, and that's a capital T on tasks. And then we just tell it what we're going to be calling. So it's grunt contrib less and grunt contrib coffee. Then we need to register. So there's a default task list, and there's you can create as many as you want. You can kind of pass that in, but the one that's required is called default. So what we're going to do is grunt register task, and that one is singular, and you give it a name. In our case, it's default, and then you pass an array of the tasks you want it to run. So we're going to pass in coffee, and we're going to pass in less. Now, if we didn't pass in less, it would just do the coffee. If we didn't pass in the coffee, it would just do the less, and so on. So I think we're good to go here. So basically what should happen when we run grunt, it should convert the site.coffee into site.js. It should convert the site.less into site.css, and then that should work in our browser. So here we go. Grunt. Done without errors. So it ran the coffee compile, created site.js. It ran the less compile and created site.css. And now if we load up our system or our website in our browser, you can see that we've got the red there, we've got the blue there, we've got our little JavaScript alert in the network. You can see it pulled in the site.css, and so it created that file on the fly, and the site.js right here. It converted it from Coffeescript into our native JavaScript. And if we just want to jump in here and kind of mess around with it a little bit, let's say we're going to make our, instead of red, it's actually going to be black. And then our coffee will say I was clicked, and then we can run our grunt again. It will complete those tasks, and now when we bring up the website, so our red got turned into black, we left the blue alone, and when I click on this, now it says I was clicked rather than just clicked. So there you go. That is GruntJS. There's so much more to this. There's FTP deploy tasks that you can run. You can automate your commits. I mean, it's endless. And if you're doing if you're working on large JavaScript applications, or if you've just got tons of preprocessor files around, this is really just a lifesaver. So GruntJS, hope you guys enjoyed it. Have a good one.